Hey everybody, Zephyr here. I am back from a week-long hiatus. Family stuff. Nothing to worry about, just a lot of fun and craziness. Not enough time to actually read anything new, unfortunately, or to actually sit down and edit stuff. It's one of those things. But I did want to talk about. I'm basically lumping these books together because they are Japanese thrillers and mysteries and stuff. And like, it'd be awesome to do individual videos, but I feel like all I would do in those videos is just talk effusively and sing their praises and stuff. And that would be it. So I kind of wanted to put them all together, not just to talk about them a little bit, but mainly as recommendations. Because I had so much fun with these books. This whole thing started out because I have an account on NetGalley, and I was lucky enough to get an advanced reader's copy for the Decagon House Murders, and it is by. Thank you for the notebook. Yukito Ayatsuji. I'm pretty sure I said that right. You know, being obsessed with manga and anime when you're growing up doesn't make you a Japanese expert, so don't ever think that that's the case. But I read this book, and I, first of all, a lot of people describe it as kind of a Japanese version of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And you definitely see the influence. I'm an English major and there's too many words bouncing around in my head. You definitely see the influence of that book. And it's actually mentioned by name in the Decagon House Murders, which was a lot of fun. But just because the book is influenced and has similarities to Agatha Christie's story, you are probably not going to actually guess what happens next. I really recommend this book. I stayed up. I basically read it in the span of about 2 days. And on the second day, I really wanted to finish it. I was just so enthralled with the story and with the mystery. And I was trying to figure it out in my head. This was one of those situations where I got so into the story where I wanted to look it up on the internet, which is always bad. And I thought I accidentally got spoiled. Come to find out, I didn't. I stayed up until like 2 in the morning reading this book and just got blown away by the ending. I loved it so much. And this kind of snowballed into me looking up other Japanese thrillers and mystery books. And just, especially the classics. These are just some of the ones I found on a list. If any of these books interest you, I definitely recommend looking up like top Japanese mysteries, thrillers, and horror books. You're going to get a lot of great recommendations. These are just a few that I found. So I definitely recommend Decagon House Murders. And then the next book that I picked up from a library, I got the ebook copy, was Tokyo Zodiac Murders by Soji Shimada. I also picked up Murder in the Crooked House. I would say Tokyo Zodiac Murders is the better of the two, in my opinion. Basically, in the Tokyo Zodiac Murders, you have the main character. I am so bad at remembering names. I'm going to look this up so I can tell you guys what this is. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. So, the main character's name is Kiyoshi Mitarai. He's basically a Sherlock Holmes character. And he's got a friend who tells him about a... Damn it, what is this friend's name? Okay. So, For the Tokyo Zodiac murders, you have kind of a Sherlock Holmes, John Watson characters in this book. You have uh, the self-made detective. His name is Kiyoshi Mirai, and then his friend who takes on the role of Watson, who is Kazumi Ishioka. Uh, Basically, Kiyoshi is approached by somebody with an old murder case, the Tokyo Zodiac murders. Uh, this case is about 20 years old, so it's a cold case. And he is told about this murder, and his friend, why do I bother putting stuff down when I have the memory of a goldfish? His friend Kazumi gives him all the details. And the story is basically them going through all of the clues and evidence. They actually go out and talk to some of the people, interview them, and try to solve the murder. I personally really enjoyed this book. There is something about the murder it's very bizarre, and there's a theatricality to it that is just morbidly very interesting. And I definitely recommend it. I think I enjoyed it more than The Crooked House, which is also a good book by Soji Shimada. And I'm looking down because I have the memory of a goldfish when it comes to people's names. It's really, really bad. But I would definitely recommend the Tokyo Zodiac murders over The Crooked House, even though I think you should read both of them, because there's just something about it that is really engaging. Again, in a very morbid way, because the murders are brutal in the Tokyo Zodiac book. A lot more so than The Crooked House. The Crooked House kind of reminds me... Hi, Luna. The Crooked House actually kind of reminds me of a game of kind of cat and mouse. It's a locked room puzzle, and I don't know how it is that I clued into who the murderer was so quickly. There was just something about the way the story was written in that book where I was just like, oh, I know that you did it. Just didn't know how. And the how of it in The Crooked House was really crazy. I would say read The Crooked House just so you can read the part where the murders get explained and you're like, wait, what? So Tokyo is good because of the morbid intriguingness of it, but Crooked House Murders is good because of just the absolute craziness of how the murder was pulled off. It really is like a crazy cat and mouse board game for that one. The next book that I read quite a few books. Oh, Devotion, The Devotion of Suspect X by Keigo Higashino. This book, out of the 6 that I'm going to tell you about, is my favorite, hands down. This isn't really a spoiler because, you know, this is the main thing about the story, but you basically know who the murderer is, and you're actually in the murderer's head off and on throughout this book. I am sure that there are other books like this where you go into the murderer's head multiple times, but not quite in this way. Like, this book makes you empathetic and sympathetic for the murderer, and also very tense when it goes to the police officer's point of view, because like you know what the murderer did was wrong, but you are very sympathetic for why they did it, and you want to know, okay, because the police have this genius professor. What was he a professor of? The police have this one character. He's called like Detective Galileo because he's this genius guy, and I have to look up his name. So in Devotion of Suspect X, you go between the perspective of the murderer and between the perspective of the police and this character called Detective Galileo. Well, that's his nickname. His actual name is Yukawa. Yukawa. He's a physicist professor, but he's also a genius. So another case where you could technically say he's kind of like a Sherlock Holmes character, but also not. Not every genius character in a detective mystery book is a Sherlock Holmes character. You know, there are other templates to go off of. But so you go between these two. Well, there's like 3 or 4 perspectives that you go between, and for me, it was this really interesting, tense ride because you want the police to succeed just because they are the good guys. You want the police to kind of figure things out because you like Yukawa, Professor Yukawa. He's a great character, but you also don't want anything bad to happen to the murderer and to Suspect X because you've got geniuses on both sides, and that's another facet that's very interesting, and like trying to wrap your mind around the thought processes of these 2 genius characters and like their motivations and what they figured out and what they haven't figured out. It was my favorite book on this list. I definitely recommend checking it out. Just so good, and I am definitely going to read more from Keigo Higashino. I'm definitely going to read more from this author because he's actually got more books in this Detective Galileo series. I am so looking forward to it. Of all the books on this list, I definitely recommend The Devotion of Suspect X. The last 2 books that I read, they are from the same author, Kanae Minato. And again, if I said that wrong, I do apologize. I will make sure to put up the cover for the books like I usually do. These 2 books from this author, very interesting, kind of different. They are not for the faint of heart. They are darker, and she is an author who is known for that. The first of these books is Confessions, and this one, no, they're both pretty dark, and you're gonna wanna take some time to yourself after reading these books. But Confessions is basically a story of a middle school teacher, and it's the end of the year. She's talking to her class and she's retiring. And she's got a few reasons for this, but the main reason is because her young 4-year-old daughter passed away very tragically. Now, the police have ruled it as an accidental drowning, but in this speech that she gives at the beginning of the book to her class, she accuses 2 of her students of murdering her daughter. And basically, the book is the consequences of both this murder and also this speech that the teacher gives, how it affects different students in her class, including the ones that she's accused of murder. And this book is very harrowing. It's very intense. There were definitely times where I had to put it down and kind of give myself a minute. And I think this is especially the case for people who have younger kids, or who, like in my case, have younger nieces and nephews that I've taken care of regularly. Like, is this book goes places. So I recommend it, but I definitely think you need to be aware of basically a lot of different trigger warnings, I guess you could say. Child murder and just abuse, and this is just in confessions. In the book Penance, by Minato, this book is intense too, but it's like a sad intensity. Because in Penance, there are these four girls who basically they had a fifth friend. So it was five girls in total, and this other friend, she was taken away by a strange man. Like, this man came up to them and took this friend away in the guise of like needing help. And their friend never came back. And later on, the body of this girl was found. And these four girls, they could never really agree on what the man looked like. It was very traumatizing for them. And so that's what this book is about, is them getting older. And in Japan, there's a statute of limitations for murder. I don't know too much about it, but apparently it's about 15 years. But basically that statute is almost up. And when they were younger, the mother of the murdered girl basically said, you need to either figure out who murdered my daughter, or you need to do penance in some way, or else I will find you and I will take revenge on you. Which is really messed up to say to a bunch of four traumatized girls. It's a whole thing. But that's what this book is about, is them trying to remember what happened, how their life was affected by this event, and their penance, basically. Because none of them can really remember exactly what happened, because it's been close to 15 years. But as you read through the chapters, you start to piece together exactly what happened based on their different experiences. And like with Confessions, this book, like I said, is intense in a lot of sad ways. The ending is interesting. Like, it all comes together, and this is definitely one of those books where, like with Confessions, I recommend you take breaks. I finished both Confessions and Penance. Actually, I think I finished them within the space of a day of each other. Like, I finished Confessions first, and then the next day I picked up Penance. They're very quick reads. Pace yourself. So, those... Excuse me, York. So those are the Japanese thrillers, mystery books, very intense horror books, I guess you could say, in some cases, that I read recently. I recommend all of them. There are definitely books that I like way more than others, but I think that's the case with anything that you read. I wholeheartedly think that y'all should check these books out if you like these kinds of genres. If they interest you even a little bit, please, like, either borrow them from your library. You can check them out on Amazon. There are English translations. I do not know hardly any Japanese, but there are really good English translations that you can find. please do. If you have any recommendations, whether they're Japanese or they're other countries, especially, because I want to expand my reading for mysteries and thrillers and horrors, definitely leave them in the comments section. You can message me on Twitter. Please do. I love recommendations. I had so much fun. You'll probably hear from me more because, like I said, I'm going to read way more of them, like from Keigo Higashino. Just, it's so much fun. It's so good. Thank you for watching me gushing about these books. Like, on to the next adventure wholeheartedly. Bye bye.